The cleaning lady thought the boss was asleep, but what she said sparked controversy. Sarah Miller pushed her cleaning cart down the silent hallway of the 22nd floor, preparing for another night of work at the investment firm's office. At 35, she had learned to work in absolute silence, especially on the occasions when the boss was still in the office late. It was when she entered the main room that she found Charles Harrison lying on the leather sofa, apparently asleep after another exhausting day. The 55-year-old man kept his eyes closed, his breathing steady, and Sarah assumed he had finally given in to fatigue. "Working late again, Mr. Charles," she murmured, beginning to organize the papers scattered across the desk. "You need to take better care of your health." Charles kept his eyes closed, but his breathing changed slightly. He wasn't asleep, just resting after a tough meeting with the investors. Sarah's soft voice comforted him, and he decided to stay still so as not to interrupt her work. "You know, Mr. Charles," Sarah continued, wiping the furniture with a damp cloth, "sometimes I wonder how you manage to carry so much responsibility alone." After what happened with Mrs. Catherine, the mention of his ex-wife's name made Charles involuntarily tense his muscles. The divorce had been finalized 3 years ago, but the wounds were still fresh. Sarah didn't notice his reaction and kept talking. "You saved my life when you gave me this job opportunity. No one else wanted to hire me after what happened, but you believed in me." Charles vaguely remembered Sarah's interview. She had arrived nervous, wearing simple but clean clothes, and had been honest about her difficulties in finding a job. He had decided to give her a chance, but never knew exactly what details she was referring to. Sarah stopped cleaning and looked at the man on the sofa. Believing he was fast asleep, she decided to open up. "Can I confess something, Mr. Charles? You won't hear me anyway, right?" She sighed. I've fallen in love with you since my first day working here." Charles's heart raced. He struggled to keep his breathing steady and not show the surprise he felt. "I know it's crazy. I'm just a cleaning lady, and you're an important businessman. We come from completely different worlds. But I can't help how I feel." Sarah resumed cleaning, but her voice carried an emotion Charles had never noticed during the 2 years she had worked there. "You're a good man, Mr. Charles. I see how you treat all the employees with respect, how you care even when you're overwhelmed. I also see how sad you get sometimes, especially when mail from the lawyer arrives." Charles swallowed hard. The lawyer's letters were usually about unresolved divorce issues or visits from his daughter, who lived with her mother in another city. "I wish I could do something to help you smile more. That's why I leave fresh flowers on your desk every day. It's not my job, but I like to imagine you're a little happier when you come in the morning." In fact, Charles always noticed the flowers and had asked his secretary who put them there. She had said it was one of the cleaning staff, but he never knew it was specifically Sarah. "I keep all the thank you notes you leave when I do something special. I have a little box at home just for them. My father always says I'm silly, but those notes mean so much to me." Sarah walked over to the desk, where several stacks of dollars were piled up, which Charles had forgotten after the meeting with clients. It was the payment for a big deal closed that day. "I need to organize this here," she murmured, starting to count the money methodically to check if everything was in order, just as she did with all the important documents in the office. "You're so absent-minded sometimes. Leaving money lying around like this. Any dishonest person could take it, but with me you can rest easy." Charles watched through half-closed eyelids. Sarah counted the money carefully, separated the stacks by value, and arranged them in order. She didn't keep a single dollar for herself. "You know, Mr. Charles, I have a bigger confession to make. Something I've never had the courage to tell anyone here at the company." Sarah's voice cracked, and Charles noticed she was fighting back tears. "I have a degree in business administration. I graduated 10 years ago, and I always dreamed of working in a place like this. But things happened in my life that kept me from getting a job in my field." Charles was surprised. In the 2 years she'd worked there, Sarah had never mentioned her education. He had always assumed she was just a cleaning lady with no specific qualifications. "I did some wrong things in the past, or rather, I took the blame for wrong things other people did, and now I live with the consequences." Sarah's voice was trembling more and more. "But you know what hurts me the most? It's not even that I can't work in my field. It's seeing you suffer alone and not being able to truly help. You deserved someone to take care of you, to share your problems. At that moment, Charles couldn't control his curiosity any longer. He opened his eyes slightly and saw Sarah with her back to him, drying her tears with her apron while continuing to organize the money. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. If I were brave, if there weren't this gap between us, I would tell you that... Sarah stopped speaking abruptly when she heard a noise. Charles had shifted slightly on the sofa, and she turned around, startled. "Mr. Charles, are you awake?" Charles decided he couldn't pretend anymore. He opened his eyes fully and sat up on the sofa, looking directly at Sarah, who held some stacks of money in her hands. "Sarah," he said in a grave voice, "what are you doing with that money?" Sarah's face went pale instantly. The situation looked terrible. She was alone in the office after hours, holding her boss's money. I was just organizing it, Mr. Charles. I always organize your papers and—" "Organizing?" Charles stood up, still stunned by the revelation he had overheard. "You were counting my money?" "No, sir, I wasn't—" Sarah began to tremble. "I was just checking if everything was in order, like I do with your documents. You always leave everything scattered and—" "Sarah, you were here alone in the dark, handling my money. How do you expect me to believe that?" Tears started rolling down Sarah's face. Everything she had confessed moments before, thinking Charles was asleep, now became even more humiliating. "Please, Mr. Charles, you've known me for 2 years. I would never do something like that. I'm just trying to take care of your things like I always do." "How can I be sure?" "You were here alone, and I woke up and found you with the money in your hands." Charles was confused. Part of him wanted to believe Sarah, especially after everything he had heard. But the situation seemed suspicious, and he had been betrayed so many times in recent years that his trust in people was shaken. "I'm going to have to call security," Charles said, picking up the phone. "No, please." Sarah fell to her knees. "I wasn't stealing anything. Look at the dollars, count them. It's all there. I didn't take a single cent." "That doesn't prove anything. Maybe I arrived before you could take something." Charles dialed building security. Sarah remained on her knees, crying desperately. "Hello, Steve. I need you to come to my office right now. We have a situation here." "Don't do that, please," Sarah begged. "Think about all these years working here. Think about the flowers I leave every day. Think—" Charles looked at her with a mix of pain and distrust. The words she had spoken about love and admiration still echoed in his mind, but now he wondered if they weren't just manipulation. "How can I believe someone who hasn't been honest with me from day one? You said you have a college degree and never mentioned it. What else are you hiding?" "I hid it because I knew I wouldn't get the job if I told the truth about my past. I needed to work, I needed to support my family." Steve, the security guard, arrived at the office accompanied by another cleaning worker who was on the floor. "What's the problem, Mr. Harrison?" "I found Sarah messing with the dollars that were on my desk. I need you to search her and see if she took anything." "That's not necessary, sir," said Sarah, standing up with dignity. "You can search whatever you want. I didn't take anything that isn't mine." The search was conducted, but nothing was found on Sarah. The dollars on the table were exactly the amount they should be. Still, Charles was not convinced. "Maybe she hid it somewhere in the building. Steve, check her cleaning cart." Sarah's humiliation was evident. Other night shift workers began to approach, curious about the commotion in the main office. "It's not necessary," said Sarah, her voice steady despite the tears. "You can search everything, my purse, my cart, my clothes. I have nothing to hide." After a thorough search that found nothing suspicious, Steve addressed Charles. "Mr. Harrison, we didn't find anything. She seems to be telling the truth." Charles looked at Sarah, who stared back with a mix of hurt and disappointment. "Even if you didn't steal anything this time, I can no longer trust you. An employee who lies about her education can lie about other things." "So you're firing me?" asked Sarah, wiping her tears. "I think it's better if you resign. It will be less complicated for everyone." Sarah nodded slowly, removed her apron and handed it to Charles. "Okay, I'll prepare my resignation letter right now." She went to the reception desk and began to write. Charles watched, feeling a strange weight in his chest. The words Sarah had spoken about love and dedication still troubled him. "Here," said Sarah, handing the sealed letter to Charles. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Charles. Even with this ending, these were the 2 best years of my professional life." Sarah picked up her purse and left the office without looking back. Charles was left alone, holding the resignation letter. "Mr. Harrison," said Steve, "if you don't mind my saying, Mrs. Sarah has always been an exemplary employee. We never had any problem with her." Charles just nodded and dismissed everyone. He stayed alone in his office, staring at the resignation letter without opening it. He spent the rest of the night unable to work, troubled by the words Sarah had spoken when she thought he was asleep. There was sincerity in her voice, an emotion that seemed impossible to fake. The next morning, Charles arrived early at the office and immediately noticed the absence of fresh flowers on his desk. It was the first time in 2 years that had happened. He decided to check the security cameras from the previous night. He asked the building security manager to review the footage from the 22nd floor. "I need to see exactly what happened in my office last night," Charles said. "Of course, Mr. Harrison. Starting from what time?" "From 9 o'clock onward." They headed to the monitoring room, where the recordings were stored. Charles watched in silence as the images showed Sarah entering the office, methodically cleaning every piece of furniture, and then discovering the money on the desk. The cameras clearly showed that Sarah wasn't trying to steal. She was counting the money the same way she organized documents, separating by denomination and leaving everything neat. At no point did she put money in her purse or hide anything. "Mr. Harrison," the security manager said, "if I may comment, the footage shows she was really just organizing. See how she leaves everything sorted, just like she does with your papers." Charles felt his stomach clench. He had committed a terrible injustice. Sarah had been telling the truth, and he had humiliated her publicly. "I need to talk to her. Do you have Sarah's address?" "I have it in the employee files. But Mr. Harrison, she turned in her uniform yesterday. Technically, she's no longer our employee." Charles took the address and decided to find Sarah in person to apologize. But first, he decided to open the resignation letter she had left. His hands trembled slightly as he tore open the envelope. The letter was handwritten with neat penmanship. "Mr. Harrison, I hereby submit my resignation, effective immediately. Thank you for the 2-year opportunity to work at your company. I want you to know that I have never in my life considered stealing from you or anyone. I have always organized your money, the same way I organize your documents, because I learned that you are absent-minded and forget important things. There is something I need to confess, and I know it doesn't matter now, but I cannot keep it to myself. My real name is Sarah Miller Thompson. I am the daughter of Arthur Thompson, who was your partner in the early years of the company. I never revealed our connection because I wanted to prove my worth on my own merit, not through family ties. When I got this job, it was the first time in years I felt useful and respected. My father lost everything when the partnership between you ended. I don't blame you for that. I know it was a difficult situation for everyone, but I needed to take care of him, and this job allowed me to do that. Thank you for everything, and I apologize if I ever disappointed you. Sarah Miller." Charles let the letter fall from his hands. Arthur Thompson had been his first partner, an upright man who had helped found the company in its early years. The partnership had ended due to disagreements over the direction of the business, but Charles had always respected Arthur. If Sarah was Arthur's daughter, that explained a lot about her character and work ethic. It also explained why she seemed to have management knowledge beyond that of a simple cleaner. Charles picked up the phone and called the building's front desk. "Steve, I need some information. Sarah Miller, did she always leave straight from work, or did she stay longer in the building?" "Mrs. Sarah. She always left at 6 in the morning and went straight to the hospital. Never missed a day." "Hospital?" "Yes, sir. She's been visiting someone there every day for 2 years. I always ask if everything's okay with her family, and she says it's her father." Charles felt a stab in his chest. Sarah had been using her salary to pay for her father's medical treatment, and he had accused her of theft. He decided to go immediately to the address on her file. It was a simple house in a neighborhood in the Bronx. He knocked on the door several times, but no one answered. A neighbor approached. "If you're looking for Sarah, she didn't come home last night. She left for the hospital this morning, as usual." "The hospital? Which hospital?" "St. Jude's Medical Center in Chelsea. That's where her father is admitted." Charles thanked him and headed to the hospital. He found Sarah in the hallway on the 3rd floor, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair next to room 307. She was wearing the same clothes from the night before and looked exhausted. Charles approached slowly, still carrying the resignation letter. "Sarah?" She opened her eyes slowly and took a few seconds to recognize him. When she saw him, her face hardened. "What are you doing here? I came to apologize. I saw the security cameras." "You were telling the truth." Sarah stood up and smoothed her wrinkled clothes. "It doesn't matter anymore, Mr. Charles. What's done is done." "It does matter. I read your letter. Why didn't you tell me you were Arthur's daughter?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears again. "Because I didn't want you to give me a chance out of pity or guilt. I wanted you to respect me for my work. And I did. I always did. You were the best employee I ever had." "Was," Sarah said bitterly. "Now everyone at the company will know I was suspected of theft. Even if you explain it was a mistake, the suspicion will linger." Charles knew she was right. The humiliation she had gone through would be hard to get over. "How's your father?" Sarah looked at the door of the room. "Not well. The doctor said he needs an expensive surgery, but we don't have the money. That's why I worked so hard. Every extra cent went to his treatment." "Sarah, Please, Mr. Charles, you don't have to feel guilty. I know you had reasons to be suspicious. I don't hold a grudge." At that moment, a nurse came out of the room. "Mrs. Sarah, your father is asking why you didn't go to work today. He's worried." Sarah swallowed hard. "Can you tell him everything is fine? That today was my day off?" The nurse nodded and went back into the room. Charles realized Sarah didn't want her father to know about the troubles at work. "He doesn't know you lost your job?" "My father has a weak heart. Any stress could harm his treatment. I'd rather he not know about my problems." Charles looked through the window of the room and saw an elderly man in bed, connected to various machines. Even sick and weak, he recognized Arthur Thompson's features. "Can I talk to him?" Sarah hesitated. "He doesn't know I work for you. I always said I worked for a cleaning company, but I never mentioned the name." "Why?" "Because I don't want him to feel guilty about the past. Your partnership ended because of legitimate professional differences. It wasn't anyone's fault." Charles admired Sarah's maturity and generosity. She was protecting both her former boss and her father from unnecessary feelings of guilt. "Sarah, I want you to come back to work for me." "I can't. Even if you explain it was a misunderstanding, people will always be suspicious of me." "Then don't come back as a cleaner. Come back as an administrator." Sarah looked at him, surprised. "What do you mean?" "You have a college degree. You know the company. I need someone trustworthy to help me with management. Someone who understands both numbers and people." "Mr. Charles, that's very generous, but it's not generosity, it's fairness. And it's also in my interest. You know the company better than anyone. You know how to organize things, how to take care of the details, how to—" Charles paused, remembering the words Sarah had said the night before about flowers and thank you notes. "You've always taken care of me without me realizing it, haven't you?" Sarah looked down, embarrassed. "I just wanted you to feel good at work. The flowers every day. The documents were always perfectly organized. The healthy meals that other employees had forgotten. Did you know?" "I suspected, but I was never sure. Why did you do it?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Because I realized you were suffering after the divorce. You were working too much, eating poorly, always seemed tired. I wanted to help, but I didn't know how." Charles felt a strange emotion taking over him. In recent years, after the traumatic separation, he had convinced himself that no one really cared about him. Discovering that someone had been watching over him with kindness and trying to take care of him, even in secret, deeply stirred his feelings. "Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Last night, when you thought I was asleep, you said a few things." "Few?" Sarah's face turned red. "You heard?" "I heard. and I want to know if it was true or if you were just venting." Sarah looked around the hospital hallway as if searching for an escape. Then she sighed. It was true. Every word. Even knowing the differences between us. The differences only matter if we let them matter. You're a good man, Charles. A man of integrity, hard-working, who treats people well. That's far more important than money or social status. Charles was moved by the simplicity and sincerity of the answer. "And what you said about loving me from the very first day." Sarah took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "On the first day, you found me crying in the bathroom because I was desperate for a job. Instead of scolding me, you offered me a tissue and said everyone deserves a second chance. That's when I fell in love." "A second chance?" "You were referring to your past problems?" "Yes, problems that to this day keep me from getting a job in my field." "What kind of problems?" Sarah hesitated for a long moment. "My ex-husband stole money from the company where I worked. When they found out, he convinced me to take the blame so our son wouldn't grow up with his father in prison. I was naive and agreed." Charles felt a wave of indignation. "Were you arrested?" "I wasn't arrested because I paid back the money by selling everything we had, but I got a criminal record and lost custody of my son to my ex-husband, who claimed I was a criminal." "And your ex-husband?" "He went free and disappeared with my son. I haven't known where they are for 5 years." Charles began to understand the depth of Sarah's suffering. She had sacrificed everything to protect a child and ended up losing her own son. "That's why you settled for working as a cleaner?" "It was the only job I could get with my record, and at least it let me take care of my father." At that moment, a doctor approached. "Mrs. Sarah, I need to speak with you about your father." They stepped aside to talk in private. Charles watched Sarah listen carefully to the medical explanations, ask technical questions, and take notes. It was clear she had far more knowledge and intellectual ability than her job as a cleaner suggested. When the conversation ended, Sarah returned to Charles with tears in her eyes. "So, how is he?" "He needs surgery urgently, but it costs $10,000 and we don't have that money." "Sarah, I'll pay for the surgery." "No, I can't accept charity." "It's not charity, it's a debt." "What debt?" "To your father. When our partnership ended, I got the better part of the deal. Arthur came out at a disadvantage, and I always felt bad about that." "That wasn't your fault. They were business decisions." "Even so. And besides, it's a loan. You'll pay me back when you're working as my administrative assistant." Sarah looked at him in disbelief. "Did you really mean it about offering me an administrative position?" "Completely serious. I need someone who understands organization, is detail-oriented, and genuinely cares about the well-being of the company. You have all those qualities. But what about my past? The criminal record? We'll take care of that too. I know lawyers who specialize in reversing unjust situations. If you really took the blame for something you didn't do, there are ways to clear your name." Sarah started crying, this time from relief and gratitude. "Why are you doing this for me?" Charles thought for a moment before answering. "Because last night, listening to you talk, I realized it's been years since I've met someone who truly cares about me. You took care of me, without asking for anything in return, just out of kindness. That's worth far more than any resume or diploma." "Charles, can I call you by your first name?" "Of course. Thank you. For everything." They were silent for a moment, absorbing the turn of events. "There's still one thing I don't understand," said Charles. "Why did you have money on the table yesterday? You said in your letter that you always organized my money, but you seemed—" "Nervous?" Sarah finished. "Because that money wasn't just yours." "What do you mean?" Sarah opened her purse and took out an envelope with some bills. "Years ago, when my father left the partnership with you, he had taken an informal loan from the company. $1,000 to pay for a medical treatment for my mother, who has since passed away." Charles vaguely remembered the situation. "He never managed to pay it back because he lost everything soon after. But I've been saving money for 2 years to settle that debt. That's why I was nervous around your money. I was going to leave the envelope with the amount on your desk." "Sarah, that debt was forgiven years ago." It may be forgiven to you, but not to me and my father. We wanted our dignity back. Charles took the envelope Sarah was offering. You've been saving money for 2 years to pay off a debt I didn't even remember existed? It was what kept me from sleeping peacefully. I knew my father owed you money and I worked for you. It felt dishonest. Charles looked at the envelope, then at Sarah. Her integrity was impressive. You know what I'm going to do with this money. I'll use it as a down payment to cover your father's surgery. I'll take care of the rest. Charles, and I want you to promise me one thing. What? That you'll never hide it from me again when you're going through tough times. We're friends now. Friends help each other. Sarah smiled through her tears. Friends. Charles hesitated. The words she had said the night before still echoed in his mind. But it was too soon to talk about feelings. They needed to take care of the practical matters first. For now, friends. Okay, I'll accept being your friend. And I accept the job, if the offer is still on the table. It is. But first, let's take care of your father. They entered the room where Arthur Thompson was awake and lucid. When he saw Charles, his eyes lit up. Charles, what a surprise! What are you doing here? I came to visit an old friend. How are you, Arthur? I've been better, said the elderly man with a weak smile. But Sarah takes very good care of me. She's a special daughter. She sure is. She works so hard. Sometimes I worry about her. She works for a cleaning company, you know. I keep telling her with her education she could find something better. Charles and Sarah exchanged glances. Actually, Arthur, I have some news for you. I offered Sarah a management position at my company. Arthur's eyes widened. Really? Sarah, this is wonderful. You always wanted to work in management. Dad, there's one more thing. Charles offered to pay for your surgery. What? No, this can't be. I can't accept charity. It's not charity, Arthur, said Charles. Consider it a loan. When Sarah is working as an administrator, you'll pay me back little by little. Charles, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just focus on getting better. Arthur gripped Charles's hand tightly. Thank you, my old friend. Thank you. Charles left the hospital with conflicting feelings. On one hand, he was happy to be able to help Arthur and Sarah. On the other, the words of love Sarah had spoken still troubled him. In the following days, while Arthur went through surgery and recovered, Charles and Sarah worked together at the firm. She quickly adapted to the new role, showing impressive administrative skills. How do you know so much about the company? Charles asked one afternoon, watching Sarah solve a complex issue with suppliers. 2 years of watching and listening. When you work invisibly, you learn a lot about how the business operates. Charles realized Sarah was right. She knew the employees, the clients, the suppliers, the problems, and the solutions better than many executives he had hired. Sarah, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. Do you still feel what you said that night in my office? Sarah stopped what she was doing and looked at Charles. I do. Every day I work by your side, I feel it more. But now we're co-workers. Doesn't that complicate things? Only if we let it. I can separate my personal feelings from professional work. Charles admired her maturity. And me? How do you think I feel? I don't know. You've never shown anything beyond friendship and respect. Maybe because I'm still learning to deal with my own feelings. Sarah looked at him with hope. And what feelings are those? I'm still figuring it out. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. That night, Charles stayed late at the office, thinking about the conversation he'd had with Sarah. For the first time in years, he felt genuinely connected to someone. He was organizing some documents when he heard footsteps in the hallway. Sarah entered the office carrying a lunchbox. I forgot to eat lunch, so I decided to have dinner here before going to the hospital, she explained. How's your father? Much better. The doctors say his recovery is going well. That's good. Sarah opened the lunchbox and the aroma of home-cooked food spread through the office. Want to share? I always make big portions. Charles realized he was hungry. He'd only had a sandwich for lunch. If it's not a bother. Sarah smiled and divided the food onto 2 plates she brought from the company kitchen. You cook very well. Charles said after the first bite. I learned out of necessity. When you live with little money, you have to be creative in the kitchen. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Sarah, can I tell you something? Of course. Before you started working here, I was going through a very tough time. The divorce was traumatic. I lost custody of my daughter, and I felt completely alone. I can only imagine how painful that must have been. It was. I'd come home every night to an empty, silent apartment. Sometimes I'd go days without having a meaningful conversation with anyone. And now? Now, for the first time in years, I feel like someone truly cares about me. Sarah set down her fork and looked at Charles. I've always cared. From the very first day. I know. And that's what made me realize that maybe I also... Charles stopped, unsure how to continue. That you also what? That maybe I also have feelings for you that go beyond friendship. Sarah's heart raced. Even knowing all about my past, about my mistakes, they weren't mistakes. These were courageous choices made by a woman who prioritized the well-being of others above her own. Charles, but I need to be honest with you. I'm still afraid of getting hurt again. My ex-wife cheated on me, lied to me, and took my daughter away. It takes me a long time to trust people. I understand, and I'm not going to pressure you into anything. We can take it slow, at your own pace. Charles smiled. Thank you for understanding. They finished eating while talking about work and Charles's plans to expand the firm. Sarah made smart suggestions and showed a surprising business insight. Where does all that knowledge come from? Asked Charles. From books. Whenever I had a little money left over, I bought management and economics books. It was my way of keeping up with my studies. Even working as a cleaner, you never gave up on your dream of working in the field? Never. I believed that one day the opportunity would come. And it did. It did, Sarah smiled, in a way I never imagined. Over the following weeks, Charles and Sarah developed an efficient and harmonious working partnership. She completely organized the firm's administration, created new processes, and improved communication between departments. The other employees, who were initially surprised by Sarah's sudden promotion, soon recognized her competence and dedication. The firm has never run so well, commented Greg, the accountant, to Charles. Sarah has a gift for organization. She always did, we just hadn't noticed. During this time, Arthur fully recovered from the surgery and was discharged from the hospital. Charles made a point of visiting him at home. Charles, I don't know how to thank you, said Arthur, emotional. You saved my life. You and your daughter helped me more than you realize, Arthur. Sarah has always been special. Ever since she was little, she always put others' needs before her own. She told me about her ex-husband and losing custody of her son. Arthur's face grew sad. That was the hardest time of her life. She nearly had severe depression. If it weren't for the need to take care of me, I don't know if she would have gotten through it. She never gave up looking for her son. She's always looking. She hired a private investigator with the first savings she put together. She found out they're living in another city, but her ex-husband got a court order preventing her from getting close. Charles felt a wave of indignation. That's unfair. It is, but Sarah hasn't lost hope. She says that when the boy turns 18, he'll come looking for her. How old is he now? 15. 3 more years. Charles went home thinking about Sarah's strength. She had lost her son through an injustice, and still managed to keep hope and take care of others. That night, he called a lawyer friend who specialized in family law. Steve, I need a favor. Could you take a look at a custody case? I think there were irregularities in the process. Sure, Charles, send me the details. Over the next few days, Charles gathered all the information about Sarah's case. He discovered that there were indeed several irregularities in the process that led to the loss of custody. Sarah, he called her one afternoon at the office. I need to talk to you about something. What is it? I spoke with a lawyer about your case. He thinks there are real chances of reversing the situation with your son's custody. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Really? You actually did that? I did, and I want to cover the costs of the process. Charles, I can't let you spend so much money on me. Sarah, you've completely changed my life. You've made it more organized, more efficient, more happy. It's the least I can do. But what if it doesn't work? What if I lose again? Then at least you'll have tried with the best possible conditions. Sarah stood up and hugged Charles impulsively. He hugged her back, feeling how good it was to have her in his arms. "Thank you," she whispered in his ear. "For everything." When they pulled apart, they looked at each other for a long moment. "Sarah." "Yes?" Charles gathered his courage. "I think I'm falling in love with you." The smile that spread across Sarah's face was the most beautiful answer Charles could have received. "I've always been in love with you." They kissed softly, sealing a feeling that had grown amid difficulties and overcoming. "But let's take it slow," said Charles when they parted. "I want to do everything right this time. We'll take all the time in the world." In the following months, the relationship between Charles and Sarah evolved naturally. They worked together during the day and spent the nights getting to know each other better, talking about dreams, fears, and hopes. The process of regaining custody of Sarah's son was moving slowly, but the lawyer was optimistic. "The documents your ex-husband presented at the time have several inconsistencies," explained the lawyer, "and the fact that you've cleared your criminal record greatly helps our defense." Charles had hired another lawyer to resolve Sarah's criminal record issue. With testimonies from the real culprit, who was located and agreed to confess the truth in exchange for a reduced sentence in another case, the situation was resolved. "Sarah Miller Thompson," said the judge during the hearing, "is officially free of all criminal records related to the 2019 case. Your name is clean." Sarah cried with relief upon hearing the sentence. Charles held her hand throughout the entire process. "Now you can work anywhere," said Charles as they left the courthouse. "I don't want to work anywhere. I want to work with you. Forever? If you want me." Charles stopped on the sidewalk and kissed her. "I want you forever." 3 months later, during the company's end-of-year party, Charles made an announcement to all employees. "I'd like to introduce our new partner, Sarah Miller Thompson, who will buy 20% of the company's shares and will be responsible for the entire administrative area." The applause was warm. Sarah had earned the respect of all employees with her competence and dedication. "I'd like to say a few words," said Sarah into the microphone. "A year ago, I was just a cleaner in this building. Today, I am a partner in the company. That was only possible because I found people who believed in me and gave me opportunities." She looked at Charles. "But mostly, it was possible because I learned that we should never give up on our dreams, even when everything seems lost." After the party, Charles and Sarah were alone in the office where it all began. "Remember that night when you thought I was asleep?" asked Charles. "How could I forget? It was one of the worst nights of my life, and also one of the best." "Why one of the best?" "Because that was when everything changed, when you found out who I really was." Charles pulled her close. "I discovered much more than that. I discovered the love of my life." "Charles." "Sarah Miller Thompson, will you marry me?" Sarah brought her hands to her face in shock. "What did you say?" Charles knelt down and took a small box from his pocket. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," shouted Sarah. "Yes, yes, yes." Charles put the ring on her finger, and they kissed passionately. "There's one more surprise," said Charles when they parted. "More?" Charles handed her an envelope. "Open it." Sarah opened the envelope and found official documents. "Charles, this is the final judgment in the custody case. You won." Sarah started crying uncontrollably. "My son. I'm going to get my son back." "You're going to get your son back. And I'm going to help you be the best mother in the world for him. Will he accept you? We'll find out together." 2 months later, on a sunny Saturday, Sarah found her son for the first time in 5 years. The boy, now 15, was nervous and wary. "Hi, Justin," said Sarah, trying to hold back tears. "Hi, Mom." They talked for hours in a park, with Charles watching from a distance. Gradually, Justin opened up and told her about the years he had spent away from his mother. "Dad always said you didn't want me," the boy confessed. "That was never true. Not a day went by that I didn't think about you." Why didn't you come looking for me before? I tried, but they wouldn't let me. Your father got a court order preventing me from getting close. He lied to me. Let's not think about that anymore. The important thing is that we're together again now. Charles approached when Sarah called him. Justin, this is Charles. He's my fiancé. The boy looked Charles up and down, clearly suspicious. Are you going to be my stepfather? If you let me, Charles said sincerely. But I'm in no hurry. We can get to know each other first. Justin nodded, still cautious. In the following months, the relationship between Charles and Justin developed slowly. The boy had suffered a lot in recent years and was reluctant to trust father figures. Charles showed infinite patience, including Justin in family decisions and respecting his time to adjust. Do you really love my mom? Justin asked one afternoon when they were alone. More than anything in the world. And if I don't like you? Then I'll work to earn your trust. Your mom suffered a lot when she lost you. My mission is to make you both happy. Justin watched Charles for a long moment. You seem cool, but I'll be watching you. Charles laughed. I'm glad to be watched by someone who cares about his mom. Charles and Sarah's wedding was held in a simple but emotional ceremony. Arthur, now fully recovered, walked Sarah down the aisle. Justin was the ring-bearer, proud to be part of the new family. You saved my daughter, Arthur said to Charles during the party. Actually, she saved me. She taught me to love again. A year later, Charles surprised Sarah with a special proposal. I want you to coordinate a new company project, he said during dinner. What project? A professional reintegration program for people who have gone through difficulties similar to yours, people who need a second chance. Sarah was moved. Really? You would do that? It's already decided. We're going to help other people restart their professional lives. The project was a huge success. Within 2 years, hundreds of people found jobs and rebuilt their lives through the program coordinated by Sarah. Justin, now 18, decided to study business administration to work at the family company. I want to follow my mum's example, he told Charles. She taught me that it's always possible to start over. On a rainy night 5 years after that first meeting in the office, Charles and Sarah returned to the place where it all began. Remember when you thought I was asleep? Charles asked. How could I forget? I said things I never thought you would hear. And I pretended to be asleep because I was afraid to face my own feelings. Good thing you pretended, Sarah laughed. If you had interrupted me, I might never have had the courage to say all that. Charles hugged her. Did you know you still leave flowers on my desk every day? And you still write little thank you notes. I keep saving them all. And I'll always write them. They stood silently embracing, watching the rain through the office window. Charles? Yes? Thank you for listening to my words that night. Thank you for saying them. Sarah smiled and nestled deeper into her husband's arms. You saved my life. No, love, you saved mine. Outside, the rain kept falling, but inside the office there was only warmth, love, and the certainty that sometimes the best things in life happen when we least expect them. In the hallway, a note stuck to the office door read, To the best manager in the world, thank you for taking care of me every day. Thank you for loving me. Charles. Sarah had found the note earlier and had saved it with all the others in the special little box she kept at home. Some traditions are too good to break. Justin walked into the office carrying college papers. Mom, Dad, I came to show you my final project for the course. What's the topic? Asked Charles. Second chances. How companies can transform lives through job opportunities. I used our story as an example. Sarah and Charles looked at each other, moved. We're so proud of you, Sarah said, hugging her son. And I'm proud of you. You taught me that true love can overcome any obstacle. As the family hugged, the rain outside began to let up, leaving the sky clearer. At the end of that night, when they were already home, Charles found Sarah organizing the old notes in the special little box. Why do you keep all of them? He asked, curious. Because each one represents a moment when you cared about me. Even before we knew we loved each other, you were already showing affection through these little words. And you showed affection through flowers and food. I think we always loved each other. We just didn't know it yet. Charles picked up a piece of paper and wrote another note. To the woman who changed my life by talking to herself on a rainy night. Thank you for every word, every gesture, every moment of love. Forever yours, Charles. Sarah read the note and smiled. This one goes straight into the special little box. Along with all the others? Along with all the others, and with all the ones still to come. Charles kissed her gently. There will be many more. Promise? I promise. One for each day of the rest of our lives. And so in that simple house full of love, a family that had been formed through missed connections and reunions prepared to sleep, knowing that true love can grow in the most unexpected places and bloom even in the most difficult circumstances. The story that had begun with words spoken in the dark had turned into a life illuminated by understanding, forgiveness, and the certainty that sometimes the best confessions are those we make when we think no one is listening. But someone is always listening, and sometimes that person is exactly the one we needed to hear. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. 6 months after the wedding, the company had grown considerably under the joint management of Charles and Sarah. The professional reintegration program had become a national example, attracting the attention of other business owners interested in implementing similar initiatives. Sarah, an interesting proposal came in today, Charles said during lunch at the office. A TV network wants to do a report on our program. Really? But do you think we should expose our personal story? Not our personal story. Just the social work we're doing. Sarah thought for a moment. If it can help other people get opportunities, I think it's worth it. The report aired a month later and had much more impact than they expected. Hundreds of business owners reached out interested in creating similar programs, and thousands of people who had lost hope of finding a job felt inspired. Mom, Justin said one night during dinner, you've become a kind of symbol of hope for a lot of people. That scares me a little, Sarah confessed. I don't want people to think our story is a fairy tale. There was a lot of suffering before we got here. But that's exactly why it's inspiring, Charles said. You show that it's possible to overcome anything. That same week, a woman showed up at the company asking to speak with Sarah. It was Martha, 42 years old, who had lost her job after being falsely accused of medical negligence. I saw the report on TV and came here because I don't know what else to do, Martha said, crying. No one will hire me. My resume is good. I have experience, but when they do the background check... Sarah listened patiently, remembering her own moments of despair. Martha, do you have children? I do. 2. They're going without because I can't work. And are you really innocent of the accusations? Completely. I can prove it, but no one gives me a chance to explain. Sarah looked at Charles, who nodded understandingly. Martha, I'm going to give you an opportunity. We'll start slowly with a part-time job, and if you prove yourself, we'll increase your responsibilities. Really? You do that for me? Someone did it for me when I needed it most. Now, it's my turn to pay it forward. Martha was hired and became one of the most dedicated employees at the company. Her story of overcoming inspired other employees and clients. Sarah, Charles said a few months later, I think we've found our true mission in life. What mission? Giving second chances, helping people rebuild their lives. Sarah smiled. You're right. That's what we do best. They decided to expand the program even further, creating partnerships with technical schools and universities to also offer free professional training. Justin, who was in his senior year of high school, decided to do his final research project on social reintegration through work. Can I interview you two for my project? He asked his parents. Of course, Sarah said, but we want to see the questions first. Justin laughed. I won't ask anything embarrassing, I promise. During the interview, Justin asked mature, thoughtful questions about how it was possible to maintain hope in times of crisis. Mum, what would you say to someone who is going through what you went through a few years ago? Sarah thought carefully before answering. I would say that the suffering passes, but the lessons we learn from it stay, and that we should never stop believing that our lives can change for the better. And how did you know that Dad Charles was a good person? I didn't know, but he gave me a chance when no one else did, and small gestures reveal a lot about a person's character. Charles, who was being interviewed separately, answered similar questions. Sir, what made you fall in love with my mother? Her sincerity. She spoke from the heart, without filters, without trying to impress. It was the first time in years that someone was completely honest with me. And wasn't it strange to find out she had heard everything? Charles laughed. It was. But it was also good. It showed that she really knew me, not just the image I projected. Justin's interviews turned into a school documentary that won first place at the school science fair. I'm proud of you, Sarah said, hugging her son after the award ceremony. And I'm proud of you both. You taught me that love can heal any wound. During that same period, Arthur, who had become an informal consultant for the company, brought news that left Charles thoughtful. Charles, I ran into Catherine at the mall yesterday. She asked about you. Catherine was Charles's ex-wife. They hadn't spoken in over a year. And what did you say? That you were very happy, married, and professionally fulfilled. How did she react? She seemed surprised, said she never imagined you would get married again. Charles told Sarah about the conversation that evening. Are you worried about something? While she asked, not exactly worried, but I got this strange urge to talk to her, to finally close that chapter. Do you want me to come along? No, it's something I need to do alone, but thanks for offering. Charles met Catherine at a downtown cafe. She looked different, thinner, with a tired expression he didn't remember seeing before. Catherine, how are you? Fine, or trying to be. And you? I heard you got married again. That's true, I'm very happy. I'm happy for you. Truly. They talked for an hour about trivial things, work, family, plans. But at the end, Catherine asked the question Charles had been expecting. Charles, have you forgiven me for what I did? Charles thought carefully before answering. I have. A long time ago. How? I cheated on you, lied, took our daughter away. Catherine, holding on to resentment only hurt me more. I needed to forgive so I could move on. And your new wife? Does she know about everything? She does. And she helped me understand that the past doesn't define the future. She must be a special person. She is. She's the most generous and honest person I've ever met. Catherine smiled sadly. You seem genuinely happy, happier than you were with me. I'm at peace, Catherine, and I hope you find your peace too. When he got home, Charles told Sarah the whole conversation. How did you feel seeing her again? Sarah asked. Relief. I realized I don't feel anything for her anymore. Not love, not anger, not hurt, just indifference. Is that a good thing? It's liberating. It means I'm completely open to loving you without reservations. Sarah kissed him softly. I always knew you loved me completely, but it's good to hear you say it. I love you more every day, Sarah. You taught me that true love isn't just passion. It's companionship, it's trust. It's wanting the other person's well-being even when it means sacrifice. You taught me a lot about love too. Like what? That love can grow from friendship, that it doesn't need to be dramatic to be deep, and that small everyday gestures are worth more than grand declarations. They stayed up late talking about the paths their lives had taken. Sarah, can I confess something I never told you? Of course. That night when you spoke, thinking I was asleep, I wasn't pretending to be asleep on purpose. I really was almost asleep. But your first words woke me up completely. What words? When you said I saved your life. No one had ever said that to me before. It made me feel important in a different way. But it was true. You gave me dignity when no one else would give me a chance. And you gave me hope when I thought I was alone in the world. Justin appeared in the living room carrying a book. Sorry to interrupt, but I need your help with a philosophy assignment. What's the topic? Charles asked. How adversity can turn into opportunity. I need practical examples. Sarah and Charles laughed. I think you have the best examples right in front of you, Sarah said. That's exactly why I came to ask for help. You two are my main example. They spent the next 2 hours helping Justin structure his work, telling him details of their stories he didn't know yet. "A serious philosophical question," said Justin as they were finishing. "Do you think everything that happened was destiny or coincidence?" Charles and Sarah exchanged glances. "I think it was a combination of both," replied Charles. "Destiny put us in the same place, but our choices determined what happened next." "I agree," said Sarah. "I chose to speak my feelings that night. Charles chose to listen to me and give me a second chance. You chose to forgive and accept us as family, and I choose every day to keep loving you," added Justin. "We do too, son," said Charles, hugging the boy who had truly become his son. A few months later, during a board meeting of the investment firm, Charles made an announcement that surprised everyone. "I would like to propose the creation of a foundation linked to the company, dedicated exclusively to social reintegration programs." "What would be the goal?" asked Greg, the accountant. "To formalize and expand the work we already do. The foundation would have its own resources and could serve many more people." "And who would manage this foundation?" asked Martha, who was now HR supervisor. Charles looked at Sarah. "I would like Sarah to take over the presidency of the foundation." "Me?" Sarah was surprised. "But what about my work at the firm?" "You would continue as a partner, but dedicate more time to the foundation. It's the work you really love to do." Sarah was moved. It would be a dream come true. The New Beginning Foundation was officially created 3 months later. At the launch event, dozens of people who had benefited from the original program attended. Martha was one of those who gave speeches. "2 years ago, I was desperate, without a job, without hope. Sarah gave me an opportunity when no one else would. Today I am HR supervisor, and I can give back by helping others." "What is the foundation's mission?" asked a reporter present. "Our mission," replied Sarah, "is to prove that everyone deserves a second chance, that past mistakes do not determine the future, and that small gestures of trust can transform entire lives." "And how do you choose who to help?" "We prioritize people who show genuine willingness to start over and who are willing to make an effort. We don't just give jobs, we offer training, psychological support, and follow-up." Justin, who was present at the event, approached the microphone when his mother finished. "Can I say something?" "Of course," said Sarah, surprised. "I want everyone to know that my mother is not just the president of this foundation. She is a living example that it is possible to overcome anything. She lost everything: job, husband, son, dignity. But she never lost the goodness in her heart." Justin's voice choked up. "And I want to thank Charles, who is not just my stepfather, but my real father. He taught me that being a man is about taking care of the people we love and giving opportunities to those in need." The entire hall stood up in applause. Charles discreetly wiped away tears, moved by his son's words. After the event, when they were already home, the family gathered in the living room to talk about the success of the launch. "Mom," said Justin, "can I ask a question I've always been curious about?" "Sure." "That night at the office, when you thought Dad Charles was sleeping, did you really say all that without knowing he was listening, or did you suspect something?" Sarah laughed. "I really thought he was fast asleep. If I had known he was awake, I would never have had the courage to speak." "And you, Dad? Why didn't you say anything at the time?" Charles thought before answering. "Because I was processing everything she was saying. It was too much information, that she loved me, that she had a college degree, that she took care of me in secret. I needed time to understand it all." "And when did you two first kiss? What was it like?" "Gabriel," Sarah protested, blushing. "Let me tell it," Charles said, smiling. "It was at the hospital, after we talked about everything. It was a gentle kiss, full of meaning, like we were sealing a promise." "What promise?" "That we were going to face the future together," Sarah replied. "That we wouldn't hide our feelings anymore." Gabriel smiled. "You know you're the most romantic couple I know, right?" "We're practical," Charles said. "Our romance is in the small daily details." "Like what?" "Like your mother still leaving flowers on my desk every morning. Like me still writing thank you notes. Like her cooking my favorite meal when she senses I'm stressed. And how he always lets me sleep in a little on weekends and brings me coffee in bed," Sarah added. Gabriel watched his parents with admiration. "I hope to find a love like that someday." "You will," Sarah said, "when you least expect it." "How did you know you were made for each other?" "When I realized I was happier taking care of him than taking care of myself," Sarah answered. "And I realized it when I started making decisions, thinking about what was best for both of us, not just for me," Charles said. That night, after Gabriel went to sleep, Charles and Sarah stayed on the porch watching the stars. "What are you thinking about?" Charles asked. "About how life can completely change in just a few years. 5 years ago, I was a desperate cleaning woman without hope. Today I'm the president of a foundation, married to the man I love with my son back. And I was a bitter, lonely, distrustful man. Today I have a family that truly loves me." "Charles?" "Yes?" "Thank you for pretending to be asleep that night." Charles laughed. "Thank you for talking to yourself that night. Do you think our story will inspire other people?" "It already is. All the people we've helped through the foundation are proof of that. Want to know something funny?" "What?" "Sometimes I still can't believe this is all real, that we actually managed to build such a beautiful life together. It's real, honey, and it's going to get even better." "How can it get better?" Charles smiled mysteriously. "You'll find out." The next day, Charles arrived at the office with a special proposal. "Sarah, how about we take a trip?" "What kind of trip?" "A real honeymoon. We never had one." "But what about work? And the foundation?" "Martha and Greg can handle everything for 2 weeks. Gabriel is on school break and can come with us." "Where to?" "To a farm out in the countryside, a quiet place where we can rest and be together as a family." Sarah smiled. "I think that's a wonderful idea." The trip was everything they needed. 2 weeks away from the city rush, enjoying the simplicity of country life and the pleasure of being together without professional commitments. "Dad," Gabriel said one afternoon while they were fishing in a lake, "can I make a confession?" "Of course." "When I found out Mom was getting married again, I was angry. I thought she was trying to replace me." "And now?" "Now I understand that you didn't come to replace anyone. You came to complete our family." Charles was emotional. "Thank you for accepting me, Gabriel. Being your father is one of the best things that has ever happened to me in my life. And thank you for making my mom happy. She deserved to be truly loved." When they returned from the trip, they found a surprise waiting for them. The foundation had received a partnership proposal from a university to create a management training course specifically for people in social reintegration. It would be like a popular MBA, the university's dean explained during the meeting. The classes would be free and focused on practical cases. "And who would teach the classes?" asked Sarah. "We wanted you to coordinate the project. Your personal and professional background perfectly qualifies you." Sarah looked at Charles, who nodded encouragingly. "I accept, but with one condition." "Which one?" "I want some of our more experienced beneficiaries to also participate as assistant coordinators. They know better than anyone what the real difficulties are." Excellent idea. The course was launched 6 months later and had much higher demand than they expected. Hundreds of people enrolled for the first cohorts. Martha was one of those selected to be an assistant coordinator. "Sarah, do you realize the impact you're having on people's lives?" she asked. "We are having it. This is teamwork." "No, it's your vision, your leadership. You turned personal pain into a life mission." Justin, who was now in his first year of business school, got an internship at the foundation during his break. "I want to learn how it works in practice," he explained to his parents. "One day I want to take over the foundation." "Are you sure?" asked Charles. "It's a big responsibility." "I am. You taught me that our duty is to give back the good we receive." During the internship, Justin met Chloe, a young beneficiary of the program who was studying psychology. "She's special," Justin told his parents. "She's been through a lot of hardship, but she maintains an incredible positive attitude." "Looks like someone's interested," Sarah teased. Justin blushed. "We're just friends." "For now," said Charles, laughing. A few months later, Justin asked his father for advice on how to win Chloe over. "Be yourself. Show genuine interest in her life, her dreams." "How did you win Mom over?" Actually, she won me over first, with sincerity and dedication. And how did you know it was true love? Charles thought carefully. When I realized I was happier making her happy than satisfying my own desires. Justin followed the advice, and a few months later, he was officially dating Chloe. Charles and Sarah really liked the girl. She reminds me of you, Charles said to Sarah, determined, brave, and with a generous heart. And she sees in Justin what I saw in you, a good man worth loving. At the end of that year, during the Foundation's holiday party, Charles gave an emotional speech. When I started this company 15 years ago, my only goal was to make money. Today I realize that true success isn't measured by what we accumulate, but by what we give. He looked at Sarah. My wife taught me that small gestures can change lives, that a chance given at the right moment can completely alter a person's destiny. And my husband taught me that it's possible to start over as many times as necessary, said Sarah, taking the microphone. That the past doesn't determine the future, that love can heal any wound. Justin approached the stage. And you two taught me that family isn't just the people who share our blood, but those who share our dreams and our struggles. The audience rose to applaud. Among those present were dozens of people whose lives had been transformed by the Foundation's work. After the party, when they were already home, Charles gave Sarah a special gift. What's this? Open it and see. Sarah opened the box and found a gold plaque with an inscription. To the woman who changed my life talking to herself on a rainy night. With eternal love, Charles. Charles. It's beautiful. I want you to put it in your office at the Foundation, so you'll always remember how our story began. As if I could forget. They kissed tenderly. Do you know what the most beautiful part of our story is? Asked Sarah. What? That it's still being written. Every day we learn something new about love, about family, about purpose in life, and that we still have many years ahead to keep writing. Justin appeared in the room holding Chloe by the hand. Sorry to interrupt, but we have an announcement to make. What announcement? Asked Charles and Sarah at the same time. Chloe has agreed to marry me. What? Shouted Sarah, running to hug the young couple. Congratulations, son, said Charles, hugging Justin. Welcome to the family, Chloe. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. You two are a role model couple for us. And you are our future, said Sarah, emotional. That night, the family stayed up late talking about plans for the wedding and the future. Chloe, said Sarah, do you want to keep working at the New Beginning Foundation after you're married? If you'll have me, yes. This work is my passion. And Justin, do you still want to take over the foundation one day? We want to, answered Justin, holding Chloe's hand. We want to continue the work you started. Charles and Sarah looked at each other with pride. Then our mission is secure for the next generations, said Charles. And our love too, added Sarah. 2 years later, Justin and Chloe's wedding was held at the Foundation's headquarters, symbolizing how love and social work were intertwined in the family. During the ceremony, Arthur, now 75 years old, but still lucid and active, gave an emotional speech. I see here 3 generations united by love and the desire to help others. My daughter Sarah taught me that it's possible to overcome any adversity. Charles taught me that true wealth lies in the relationships we build. And Justin taught me that young people can honor the values of their elders while still creating their own paths. After the ceremony, when the guests were saying goodbye, Charles and Sarah were alone in the hall where everything had happened. Remember when you told me you didn't know if our story was destiny or coincidence? Asked Sarah. I remember. Today, I'm sure, it was destiny. We were meant to meet, to love each other, to build all of this together. Charles hugged her. And we are destined to stay together forever. Forever is too short. Then let's start with eternity. As they kissed under the soft lights of the hall, a light rain began to fall outside, reminding them of that distant night when it all began with words spoken in the dark. But now there was no more darkness, just light, love, and the certainty that sometimes the best stories begin when we think no one is listening. End of story. And you, dear listener, what did you think of this love story of overcoming? Tell us in the comments if you believe Sarah made the right decisions and how you would react in Charles's place. Your sincere words are very important to us. If you were moved by this journey, don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories like this one. Thank you so much for your company.